So, as they say, shall we get the show on the road? So, to introduce myself, for those people who don't know me, my name is Jason Langenauer. I'm the Chief Technology and Product Officer here at TimeZest, which means I look after the product, what features we're going to build, the prioritization of those, as well as the technical engineering teams that actually build them. Do you want to go introduce yourself, Joe?
Yeah, so my name is Johanna Stroba. Like Jason mentioned, I'm in Idaho, so out in the middle of the mountains, which I love. But I do the customer success here at TimeZest for, let's see, next month is 3 years. And so I work with our customers to make sure that you know how to use the product, that you get onboarded and up and running and don't miss any of those important features that Jason and team are working to bring to you guys. So we like to tag team on these webinars to make sure that you're getting the information that comes out. And this time we decided we really wanted to focus on sales processes. And the reason why is TimeZest started out being really strong in help desk. And we've been working really diligently over, I'd say, the last year, 18 months or so to start expanding that outside of the help desk, but to other teams within the company. And so this is our first time really taking this subject head on. And so we hope you find some value out of it. But I'll go ahead and go to, are we seeing the screen here well? And I'll go ahead and move us forward. So a couple of talking points we wanted to make sure to cover are how you can schedule inside and outside of the PSA. So your help desk is generally working in service tickets, and we know that sales teams are structured differently with different companies. Some work in service tickets and some don't. And so we wanted to empower both team platforms to be able to use TimeZest. So we're going to show you how to set that up. Also, how to create appointment types that will support your sales team and what that looks like using our workflow mode, which we released last August, which is, it's been almost a year now, which is amazing. And then Jason and team have been working on different actions inside of that workflow mode to support your sales team. And then we have some new features that we've released recently that will really help with this process. So that's the new send email action, as well as the what you see is what you get sales email template editor. And then we have a few other new things that Jason's going to cover as well. And we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. Okay, sound good? Okay, so we're going to start with the Microsoft 365 integration and how you can use this to schedule for your resources, both inside the PSA as well as those who work directly out of Outlook. And I'll let you take it from here, Jason.
So yeah, I mean, the reason we've made this sort of inroads into sales and features for sales team is we heard a lot of MSPs saying to us like, oh, it's really annoying that we have to have like these two scheduling software. You know, we have TimeZest, which our service desk uses, and we have, say, Calendly or Microsoft Bookings that our sales guys use. You know, why do we have two pieces of SaaS software that do exactly the same thing? And we also heard that, you know, as part of most MSP's sales process, there will be appointments within that, things like network discovery calls, where you're going to want to have both someone from your sales team who's looking after the actual sales side of things, as well as someone from the technical team present on that call. So, you know, when you want to do the scoping of what the actual technical requirements of a potential customer is, you're going to need both those people in that meeting. And if you're using two separate products, there's no easy way to actually schedule an appointment where a technician is using ConnectWise Manage as their calendar and the salesperson is using Microsoft Office. Now, just as a note, I'm going to talk about ConnectWise Manage here because that's the majority of our customer base. Almost everything here is also applicable to Autotask as well. it's the functionality is pretty much identical, but just for the sake of brevity, and so I don't have to keep saying ConnectWise and auto task, I'm just going to talk about ConnectWise and ConnectWise Manage. But for those of you who do use auto task as your PSA system, everything here applies to you as well. So one of the first basic things to use TimeZest with your sales teams, or for that matter, anyone in your organization who prefers to use Microsoft Office as their calendar of record, is to connect the what we used to call the Office 365 integration, and then Microsoft renamed it to Microsoft 365. And that gives TimeZest the ability to read and write to all the calendars in your organization for each member. Now, this is configurable for each individual user. So you can say for a certain person, we only want to read availability from their Microsoft 365 calendar, but actually write the appointments into ConnectWise Manage, or you can have it so that both existing appointments are read from the Microsoft 365 calendar, and the appointments we book are written to that calendar, or any combination thereof. Mm-hmm. This is available to all subscribers on the TimeZest Professional plan. It's pretty quick and straightforward to get running. You just need to be an administrator for your Microsoft 365 instance, so you can grant the necessary permissions, but it takes literally about 2 minutes to get up and running, and then you're good to go with that. Jump to the next slide then, Joe.
Yep. So here is
what I was talking about.
Yeah. Yep. So this is where you can access it inside TimeZest. If you go to Users, Configure, and then Calendars. And if you look at the slides here, I put a little cheat sheet on where to access these different pages that we're going to be going over, but Jason is going to show live. But when you're in here, you'll see the calendars, and this has both the ConnectWise PSA and Microsoft 365. And you'll see that you can actually select only one to be written to. And so if your user is working out of ConnectWise, working out of tickets and things like that, you'd want us to read both calendars, but write to that one. But when you're using for setting up for a user that works primarily out of their Outlook calendar, you'll want to use where we're reading and writing to Microsoft 365 and then reading ConnectWise. So this just kind of highlights that, so you know exactly what to look for. But I think, Jason, you were going to show them live kind of where to go to that, correct?
I can do that, yes. I'll share my screen. So hopefully you're seeing my instance of TimeZest. So just in case of going to the user screen, you see you have your list of users. You've all seen this. And if you jump into the press configure, it'll load up. And then you can see here in Calendar. So in this case, there's only ConnectWise Managed because this particular user isn't associated with an account in Office 365, even though we have the integration installed. I'll see if I can find a user where that is the case. Maybe Jameson will work. No, all right. I won't search that out, but normally, what TimeZest does is it actually associates your account on Office 365 with a user account on TimeZest on the basis of the email address matching. And that's how we know which particular account in Office 365 matches a TimeZest account. All right. So are we going to start building the appointment type now, Joe? I've forgotten already the... Yep. So what we're going to do today is we're going to build a new appointment type using some of the workflow features in TimeZest. And we're going to do that using some specific features as well that are particularly important to salespeople, namely creating opportunities within ConnectWise Manage or Autotask. So we'll create this new appointment type. What does it look like? New prospect meeting, and as always in TimeZest, we can have different internal, external names for all our appointment types. The internal name is what we use internally. This is only ever displayed within the interface that our users, our dispatchers see. And the external name is a more friendly name that you can use and it's what TimeZest actually displays to the end user when they schedule. That's just a little something to know. I think most people have come across that, but for those who haven't, there's a tip. So we have a brand new appointment type here. We can see that TimeZest has already given it what we call a URL slug. So it can be used for URL-based scheduling, for shareable URL scheduling. For those who don't know what that is, there's a lot of TimeZest appointments are set with the pod in ConnectWise Manager or the Insight, where there's already a ticket existing and associated with the whole process. In this situation, there isn't a ticket. Like if someone comes to your website, there's not going to be an existing ticket or anything in their database. It's just going to be going from literally nothing. So they'll use this functionality, and what TimeZest can do in the background as they schedule is actually create a ticket and a few other things. So because we want to actually modify this workflow directly, and this is what TimeZest actually does when it's doing the scheduling. This is the steps it goes through and executes. We're going to switch this appointment to what's called workflow mode, which lets us directly edit these workflow stages. So let's have a look here what we have here. And this is the important one. When the client schedules their appointment, what do we want TimeZest to do? So by default, it comes up with a few things. It's got an action. These are actions to create a contact in ConnectWise Manage. We'll create a schedule entry in the ConnectWise Manage calendar. Create an event in the scheduled users Microsoft 365 calendar. And I'll explain why those are both necessary here. It's because, in those situations where there are users that have a calendar, some that use Microsoft 365 and some that use ConnectWise PSA, these actions can only operate on each individual calendar. So we need both of them here. After that, we have the emails to actually confirm the appointment to both the invited guests and the client, the scheduled user here, so the person on our side. And if there's a service ticket associated with all this, it can update the status and write a note against it. Now, because this is a sales call, we actually want to do something a little bit different here. We want to create a opportunity in ConnectWise Manage. Apparently, officially, it's called ConnectWise PSA now, and we've renamed things to that, but everyone still calls it Manage, and so do I. So we'll do that. So we have this action: find or create an opportunity in ConnectWise PSA. So let's add that to the workflow here, and we'll see it appear. Now, this action hasn't been saved yet, so it won't have any effect. And what we need to do first is configure it and tell TimeZest what sort of opportunity we want to create in ConnectWise Manage. So we'll give it a title. That's company name, status. So we'll make that open. We'll give it a medium status stage. It's a prospect. These values are all configured inside ConnectWise Manager and AutoTask. We're just pulling the values here so that we have them available. Type, let's leave that to the default, and leave the campaign as none. So we've selected the values here for the opportunity we want to create inside ConnectWise Manage. So we'll save the changes here.
Real quick, Jason, somebody had a question about the contact. Will it check for one before creating a new one? So I wanted to just... It
does, yeah. So this create a contact, which we probably should rename to find or create a contact. There's a lot of reasonably smart logic behind it. and it will try and find an existing contact inside ConnectWise Manage on the basis of the email address that's been provided. And if one is found, we'll use that. So that's how we avoid creating lots of duplicate emails or duplicate contacts in ConnectWise Manage.
And just real quick, I want to make sure everyone knows we will be recording this, or it is being recorded, and I'll be sending it out sometime next week, but it'll also be posted on our YouTube channel where you can find previous recordings as well. Okay.
So we have this. So we have this shareable URL that we can use to book the appointment. Let's go to that, and we'll see what this prospect sees. So I'm sure you've all seen the scheduling interface that we have, so we can pick a date, pick a time, and the prospect fills out their details. Now, something's going to happen here, and when I press the button, it's actually going to show an error because something's not quite right with that. So you see this? TimeZest is working away in the background. And we see we've seen an error here. Now, when this happens, there's a lot of tools in TimeZest to actually work out what's going on. So what we're going to do is go to TimeZest. We'll see the list of scheduling requests. We can see the new meeting that we just tried to schedule a minute ago. So we'll have a look at that. And we can see here, we've got this audit trail that shows exactly what TimeZest was doing. You can see how it went and executed each one of those actions. So it created the contact okay, created the opportunity okay. And we see here, it was unable to create a schedule entry. Why is that? So TimeZest was unable to create a schedule entry because there was no ticket associated with this. And this is something coming from ConnectWise. A schedule entry in ConnectWise Manage has to be associated with a ticket. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our appointment time, and we're going to actually modify that and add the ability for TimeZest to create a ticket. Remember what I called it? It was a new prospect meeting, wasn't it? So again, we go here, we go create a ticket, service ticket. Now, this is actually something worthwhile doing, not just because of the error we saw, but it's something we see when people use the ConnectWise Manage CRM module. The opportunity which you find in there, this sales and opportunity section, it has a good section for, like, its use is to track sales prospects through the sales funnel. So you can use it for reporting and look at, how much you're closing, what sort of is in your pipeline, and so on and so forth. But what's not particularly great about this is that if you want to track the time of what your engineers are doing, if, for example, someone spent 2 or 3 hours working on a quotation, or, answering technical queries or something, that doesn't really work with these opportunities in ConnectWise Manage. So what a lot of MSPs actually do is they'll create the opportunity here for the CRM side of it. And they'll also create a ticket which is used for all the time tracking of any additional time that's spent, and there usually is some, as a prospect is brought through the sales process from that initial contact, hopefully to the point where they sign a contract with you. So let's set up this ticket. We'll give it a specific name. Time We can decide which board we want the ticket to be created on. So let's make that account management, source, email, priority, normal. Status, we'll use one of the contact sheet with TimeZest. We'll save the changes there. So now we have a service ticket being created by this workflow. So that'll be there in Connect, Manage. And it also means that this create schedule entry action will now work. So let's jump back. Go right back to the start.
While you're doing this, Jason, we have a question. If the ConnectWise PSA is linked to Microsoft CRM, can the opportunity update the Microsoft CRM? Do you know?
I don't know, actually. That's if it can be done, it's something that's sort of outside the scope of TimeZest, if there's some automated way of doing it, but TimeZest itself doesn't yet integrate with Microsoft CRM or anything like that. So there's no way of directly doing it.
Right.
So now we're scheduling the appointment. TimeZest in the background is talking to the various APIs. It's creating the appointments. It's creating the ticket. It's creating the contacts. I think this is one of these times when the staging instance of ConnectWise Manager we're using is a little bit slow, but here we are. We can see now that the appointment has been scheduled. So we can jump back into ConnectWise Manage now and see all that. So we're going to refresh this. So there's the refresh button. Search, isn't it? So that's this one here, isn't it? It's Thomas Prospect. So we can see the opportunities being created now. It's ready to go. You can add additional information to it if you want. Depending on like the custom fields you use, what your sales process is. We can go there and have a look at the ticket that's being created. So there. We can see because this particular instance of ConnectWise Manage has certain settings around the status of the ticket. You see this note, and it's there are certain limitations to it. But we can see here. So here's the ticket. It's associated with the opportunity, as ConnectWise Manage allows you to do auto task as well. We can see the meeting here that's been scheduled. This is in TimeZest. You can also see it in the resources and meeting section of ConnectWise Manage. I'm not sure. Joe, can you tell me if you can see my mouse cursor? Because I just realized I'm like pointing at things, but that might be
yes,
invisible.
Yeah, we can see it.
You can see it. All right, that's good. And now you've got that combined ticket and opportunity ready to go. So if someone needs to record time against it, that's entirely possible. You can record your notes. However your sales process is, however you built it to work, it's ready to go now. Mm-hmm. So that's the basics of getting TimeZest to create opportunities inside of ConnectWise Manage. I'm just trying to think how we're doing for time. I think we're sort of okay, aren't we?
Yep, we're about halfway through. So we have a question from George right here. So while you were doing the setup of the appointment type or the shareable URL to set the standard summary line, right? He asked, is there a way to create a drop down for the prospect to select what the meeting is about? So to answer that right now, what you can do, you can set a standard summary, or you can leave it where they can type in what it's about. But there isn't a drop down per se, okay? I hope that answers your question. And his other question was, can the address for the company be required?
Yeah, not as yet. That's something we're going to look at in the future, is adding like additional fields to actually collect additional information there. It's not a small engineering project, unfortunately, much as it might look simple. But it's definitely on our radar, and it's definitely something we are thinking about. But like I said, it's a pretty substantial amount of work.
And then,
So
yes, we can create an activity instead of a ticket. That is an
yes,
option there. Yep.
there's an option. So yeah, if you want to create an activity, you could delete this, create a schedule entry action, and replace it with there's activity and ConnectWise PSA.
Okay.
Now, at the moment, I'll just jump to our email templates. You can see who we're sending the confirmation email to the end user, the person who scheduled the appointment, using this default confirmation email template. And if we have a look at that, we go to email settings and have a look at the default confirmation email. We can see here what this is a pretty generic and anodyne email. It's one of the ones that we've designed internally. It's the default one, and it should work with pretty much anything in terms of the content of it. But what we could do here is use this new email editor, and this is something we've just released in the last month, where it's much easier now to edit and create emails for specific circumstances. So you can use these to specifically address, the context in which an email is being sent. So in that case, where for a sales call, you can use it to modify and speak with your company's brand voice. Again, this is very sort of generic and middle of the road. Depending on what your company's brand is, you might be more playful, more serious, I don't know. But what we'll do quickly, just so I can start to demonstrate some of the features here, is we'll create a new email template. We'll call it a confirmation email. We see here, so what TimeZest has done is there's a default template that's been configured. We don't want any of that, so let's delete all this existing guff.
And then while he does that, Robert, yes, when you have the schedule entry created, you can have TimeZest make that scheduled resource the owner of the ticket. So there is an option inside of the appointment type to do that, okay?
So now I've deleted the existing contents of the default template. We can start building the layout of our new email. So we can drag in a text section here. And that's just showing there's a single column. We'll put some text into that column, and then we'll add that. So you can see we can insert variables here to customize the email. Now, those of you who may remember the previous incarnation of the email editor, where you had to jump into HTML and edit all sorts of horrible things, might think this is a vast improvement, which I hope you do. So we can do some more text there.
I do.
And here's the opportunity we have to now, sorry?
I said, at least I do. Now I can.
Here's the opportunity for us. So for this email, we can talk specifically about the context it's used in. We're sending this email to someone who's a prospect. They've just, they're not a customer already. So we can talk specifically to that in context and say, yeah, we can insert the start time. So on in the time zone of the end user. I won't bore you all by continuing to sort of fill out this email. I'm sure you all get the rough concept of it. But the thing that I want to emphasize here is that it's now easy to actually come in and write these sort of email templates that exactly speak to what the situation is. If it's a sales email, we can talk about things like this. You know, if it's some sort of email confirming a remote desktop session, you can do things like, you know, tell the user about the sort of prerequisites or things you want to do there. It's very, very customizable, excuse me. And it gives you the ability to really build processes around the appointments and schedule so that everyone at every stage has their expectations set correctly. They know what's coming next, and you get a much more understandable and comprehensible process that hopefully means no one is feeling like they don't know what's going on and they don't feel frustrated or ignored. So when we save that email template, you can see it's been saved in the list here as this sales confirmation email. And then back in the appointment type, prospect meeting, we can go to this, send an email to the client and invited guests using the default confirmation email template, and simply select the one we've just created and hit save. There we go.
That's
it's in use now.
That's a step not to forget, right? So once you create the template, you do need to go in and apply it to the appointment type that you create it for, right? So that's a step that I see gets missed. Sometimes they'll create them and then forget to apply them. Okay.
Yeah, we've tried to be with this like very explicit about what TimeZest starts and try and make it quite clear in how it operates. So if you see something in the workflow, that's how TimeZest will operate.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us to the point where we want to show you the feature we've just released in the last couple of days, which are our user and personal pages. Now, there's some situations where you might want to have the end user actually select the type of appointment or even just the duration of the appointment. Mm-hmm. And what we've done is we've built what we're calling these personal pages. So if we go into the account screen here for the user, we can see there's this new section here, personal page. And for most people, it'll be turned off by default. So if we switch it on, we can then select which of all the appointment types in the system we actually want to display. So we'll have the new prospect meeting we just selected. We'll have, let's say, this pre-sales meeting, sales discovery. And if we save that, what you get is this URL here, which you can copy, and you can distribute this to anyone. You know, it's just that subdomain that's configured for your TimeZest account plus your personal URL slug. There, you won't have to edit it for yours, but I have to to the environment I'm using. And you see this screen here, which offers the end user which particular type of appointment they'd like to book. You can see for one of them, we've actually set up a description there. So you've got a little bit of text you can give to the end user just to give them a bit more context to describe when it's appropriate to use that appointment. So what I'll do is actually set that up for the appointment type we've just created. And then you go to appointment details.
Yeah.
And just give it a description, right?
So I was going to say, George, your question about the drop down, this would solve that. If you want to use this personal page, then you don't need a drop down. You can use this and do different appointment types, okay?
Yeah, save that. And if we reload this page, you can see here for this appointment type, we've now got that little description there. you can use this for different types of appointments. One situation I've heard of, someone was asking for is they have some clients that like to use Zoom for their remote calls and some clients that like to use Microsoft Teams. So they'd like to give them the end user to the choice in that. You can have exactly the same appointment just with different durations here. So people could pick either a 15-minute, a 30-minute, or a 1-hour appointment. There's lots of ways to set this up, depending on what your particular needs are. So end user sees this, they select the one they'd like to book, and then it's the same as before. So I won't go through it again. All right. I feel like I've covered a lot now. So should we do a quick summing up, or?
Well, let's see. One thing I wanted to real quick before we jump to question and answers, you showed us the default email template or creating custom email templates. Can you show the new send email feature that's directly in the workflow?
I can indeed. So as you saw before, by default, TimeZest operates using these email templates, which are separate from the appointment type. So that way they can be shared amongst all different appointment types. There might be situations where you only need a particular email for one appointment type. In that case, you can do something slightly different. So you see here we have this sales confirmation email template, or this action to send using a template. Let's delete that. Instead, we're going to use this, and that was created using this send an email using a template action. Just above it, there's now a send an email action. So if we add that, you see it's the same thing, except this now you can edit this email to be sent directly here in the action. It's only available here, so it's not yet shared with any other action. And it's good for just those one-off emails or one-off workflows where you don't want to have to create a specific email template and then use it in a single place.
Right. So if you have an appointment type where you want to provide directions for that appointment type or set expectations, this is a great place to do that because you may not be using that email template in multiple appointment types. It might only apply to this one. So if you're wanting to use an email for multiple appointment types, you'd want to create that in the email settings section and create an actual template for it. This is more just to apply to that one appointment type. Okay. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and put them in the question and answers. And then let's get some of those answered because that's a really valuable part of this. You guys get to get in front of Jason and get some questions answered. And I know there's been one here for a while now about the Halo PSA. So if you want to just touch on that.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it is coming. We're building it at the moment. So that's under active development, probably 2 or 3 months away still. There's obviously a fair amount of work when we integrate with a PSA system like that. And we've also been waiting on them, Halo PSA to develop the functionality to allow us to do what we do in ConnectWise Manage and Autotask and display a little pod. They've done that. I just got beta access to it for our testing yesterday. So all the things are going on that, and you can be sure that we will be shouting from the rooftops when our Halo PSA integration is ready. But yes, it's being worked on.
Yeah, the team is chomping at the bit to announce that. So yes. Don't worry, you'll hear about it when it happens. And then we got a question about, is it possible to block the first 24 or 48 hours so it leaves time for preparation, not to get a meeting 15 minutes before it's booked? You'll want to use minimum notice inside the scheduling options. So when I teach about setting these up, I always encourage people to use minimum notice. It doesn't matter if it's a 15-minute phone call or a 4-hour appointment. You want to have enough time to recognize, one, that it's on the calendar, but then two, to prepare for it. So minimum notice is what you're going to want to use. And then as in conjunction with that is the buffers to make sure nothing's back to back with any of your other appointments. I hope that answers your question. Okay. Then
yeah, so you can do that. You can say 24 hours. You can even say like this supports like business days. So if someone books at 4 p.m. on a Friday, this will make sure that they can't book until at least some point on the Monday.
Actually, business day would probably push it to Tuesday or Wednesday, right? So
yeah, you can,
yeah. So you can really give yourself enough time with that. Alex is asking about team scheduling. So if you could just show us how team scheduling can work with scheduling against a pool of resources, right? So we can show the availability for multiple resources and then schedule with one. So, and then we do have the new team page. So if you want to just,
So the teams, yes, thank you. Teams feature in TimeZest lets you define teams of users and then schedule with that team. So when the end user picks their time, TimeZest will then assign that appointment to a specific member of the team. And all of the teams have a personal page as well. So you can have, say, a sales team, for example, with all 2, 3, 4 of the people in your sales team, and then TimeZest will allocate that to the person who's available. It can do that either on what we call a maximum availability basis, which is just whoever's available gets it, or it can do it on a round robin basis where each person sort of gets assigned an appointment in order. It sort of keeps rotating through the team. And just a little tip with this as well. In TimeZest, you can have a team with just one member. So if for some reason you want to have different groups of appointments on your personal page that you use in different contexts, perhaps one for sales, one for internal matters like for your employees or something like that, you can just create a team with one member, and that effectively will be an alias for your user.
And this is really good if you are growing as a company, right? So you might only have one sales guy right now, but then as you bring on new resources, you can easily go in and add them to the team, and you're not having to change any URLs that maybe you've embedded into a web page or put into some marketing information. The URL will stay the same, but the resources that are available to schedule with you're able to edit on the fly, right? So that's a great way to kind of make it grow with you. And then let's jump over, if you don't mind, Jason, to custom availability for a user. So George has a question about how to set, Thursdays aren't available or things like that. So if we could just show where that's located.
So so you can configure that for your user. So if let's go to me here. We see this availability section. So if we click on that, by default, your availability will look something like that. Just use the default time zone and default calendar. At this stage, to do something like this, you can edit that. So let's say we've got this is telling TimeZest, all right, I'm available between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. And what was the example? It was like exclude Thursday 3 to 5. So we could go here, change that, and then this portion of the day, Thursday between 3 and 5 p.m., TimeZest will never offer appointments that go into that time of the day. And you just hit save, it'll update for you.
Yep, and you can have multiple blocks, right? So you can do from 8 to 10 and then pick up having meetings again from 1 to 4, right? So you can block out your lunch if you take a stagnant lunch break. And so that's something you can also do. I hope that answers your question. So Eric is wondering about Teams dial-in calling. If that's
so this is something we're sort of in a better position to do. I know people have asked about it for a little while now, and the difficulty of that was always integrating it into the old HTML email templates. What we will likely do at some point, I can't give any guarantees as to when, is we'll probably have a new block type here that is like Teams dial-in information that you can then drag into an email. I can't promise when that will be made available, but it's now a lot more possible. So it's something we'll think about. Something to sort of mention on that point is our roadmap. If you go to roadmap.timezest.com, you can see feature requests that various people have made, and you can vote for them, comment on them. You see the localization of TimeZest is one that's been getting a lot of attention recently. And you can search, so I think we search for that.
There, top one.
Oh.
Yep.
So
this
I'm
is
sure,
a
I'm sure there's a ticket for it, but
the very top.
Oh, Tim Cortland's there, sorry, yeah. So yeah, so you can come here and vote for this, and it's something we definitely take into account when we're deciding how to actually, like what to build. But you know, like everyone, we have a limited engineering resource base and a lot of things that people want, so it tends to be fairly ruthless prioritization, unfortunately.
But this is, you know, like Jason is saying, this is a great way for you to get your, you know, feature request in front of the team. So we aren't going to be able to think of every use case that you might need for your business. So feel free to submit this. We really encourage that participation. Yeah. And then Jason will pull from it. Our next question is, do you have a best practice to, let's say a customer sends a request and Autotask sends a message to the client acknowledging the request with a ticket number, send them a link to schedule a call with someone in the team. So you can use our URL-based scheduling to insert a link with maybe your team inside of that automated email that the Autotask is sending, right? So that would be a way to do it. Now, Jason, with the new team pages, would that link work, or would that create issues?
No.
Okay,
that doesn't yet work with URL-based scheduling. But we had a specific task thing, but we don't. But this is how people can use it. There's basically, you'll see. I'm not logged into one of our Autotask accounts at the moment, so I won't go through that. But basically, there is a URL, and you'll see it in the appointment type screen for an appointment type. You'll see we were using this one before, but the one you want to actually be using is this one. It's URL-based scheduling URL. And if you include that in a template in ConnectWise Manager Autotask, in this case, like ConnectWise Manager will replace this SR number with the ticket number, and that will allow, when this link is clicked, TimeZest to schedule an appointment against that ticket. There's a slightly different format for Autotask. If you have using TimeZest as an Autotask customer, it's already poured into that link there. So again, you can just copy and paste it directly into your email templates.
Okay, so to clarify and kind of wrap that up, the URL-based scheduling URL link that you see on the top is good to use in those automated emails your PSA is sending, because it will pull the ticket number that is already associated with the ticket, right? The shareable URL is one that you'll want to use when there isn't already a ticket that is opened or correlated with this event, right? So it will actually create a new ticket or activity, however you've set it up in the workflow, right? So that's the difference between the URL-based scheduling link and the shareable URL link, okay? Do we have any more questions? We have a few more moments here. I wanna make sure everybody gets their questions answered.
No. Well, I'll talk about something very briefly. I like to give people on these calls a little bit of a preview into the future, so they get a bit of information that's not generally available. You probably saw it was a reasonable amount of work to actually fiddle with all these workflows today. So one of the features that we're currently building at the moment is what we're calling a workflow library. And what that's going to be is allow us to actually, TimeZest, to pre-build a lot of appointment types for situations that we think will be useful to a lot of our customers. And you'll be able to simply copy those appointment types into your account and then just maybe modify them slightly for your specific situation, which is something we hope will make it even easier to actually start using TimeZest in new situations and to build new processes around TimeZest. So there you go, a little bit of, I won't say quite confidential information, but just a glimpse into the future.
A little sneak peek. Yeah, that'll be great.
Yes.
It'll be great because it'll be really easy, when you are like, okay, I need to build out this new appointment type, you can drag it, apply it and then edit it as needed, and you don't have to build it from scratch, right? So that'll be a fantastic, I'm really excited about that. I guess what we can do is I want to make sure that everybody knows what's available to them with your subscription. One, we do these webinars here and there to try to kind of bring what's new and give you guys a little nugget of information and get your questions in front of us. But we also, you can reach out to us for consulting. I'm happy to go through your system with you and review it and make sure that it's set up in a best practice way that's really going to support your processes and your needs. So if you're having any issues or you feel like maybe the team's not using it as well as you thought they were or anything like that, please reach out. And you can do so at help@timezest.com, and we can schedule a session to sit down and discuss what's going on and cover any of these new topics as well. So let's see, if we already have an account, are we able to get a demo license to test with the sales team? We don't have the ability to do a demo license for you if you're already a customer. So I'm happy to work with you to talk through what would need to happen to set up your sales team. But as we are, a SaaS business, you can, try it for a month. If you don't like it, you can cancel that user and not continue on. So there's no real issue, or, there shouldn't be a concern about just trying out a license for a little while, right? Again, to get your questions answered or to try to schedule a meeting with me, help@timezest.com, or if you're in app, his little chat box is black, but it'll be yellow for you. So it goes to the same location as the email. You can open that up and send us a message, and then I'll send you over my scheduling link and we can talk through your system. Any last questions before we go on for the day? No? Okay, everyone, I am so grateful that you guys joined us today. Like I said, this is recorded. Give me a few days to edit it and I'll email it out, and then we'll also have it on our YouTube channel so you can access it there. And then I look forward to working with you all in the future. And thank you, Jason, so much for walking us all through this.
Thank you, everyone. I hope that was informative for you.
All right, we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.